We welcome you to our study. Job chapter 34, 1 to 20. We'll begin with the first half of the chapter, and Lord willing, next time we'll complete the chapter together. So if you will, turn to Job chapter 34. We'll look at verses 1 to 20 today. In verses 1 to 4, we see the beginning of Elihu's second speech. In verse 1, Elihu further answered and said, here we see Elihu continues to speak. Hear my words, you wise men. Give ear to me, you who have knowledge. Elihu begins by addressing the wise men, or the wise, those who have knowledge or possess knowledge. It calls for the wise to hear the words. He calls for those who possess knowledge to give ear or to pay attention to him. This is similar to the previous chapter when Elihu told Job, give ear, Job, listen to me, in Job 33:31. These wise addressed here appear to be a different group of people from the three friends of Job. It could include them, but it may be a different group altogether. But he addresses the wise and those who possess knowledge. The friends of Job were unable to answer Job, according to Elihu. And now here he addresses those who are wise and who have or possess knowledge, like him, I suppose. Verse 3, for the ear tests words as the palate tastes food. Elihu explains why the wise should hear the words. Verse 2, he says that the ear tests words as the palate tastes food. You might say that someone has a discerning palate. In this case, Elihu says that the ear tests words, and so it hears the sounds and it makes a distinction. As the palate or the taste, the mouth, the tongue tastes or discerns food. These are the words said earlier by Job himself. Back in Job 12 and 11, does not the ear test words and the mouth taste its food? And now Elihu simply repeats what he said and asked the wise men and those who are there concerning this matter. For the ear tests words, and as the palate tastes food. That word translated palate is also translated as taste in Job 6 and 30, and mouth in other passages like Job 12, 11, and others in the book. Verse 4. Let us choose justice for ourselves. Let us know among ourselves what is good. Elihu calls for the wise to choose justice. Choose, after careful examination, what is right for yourselves. He calls for those possessing knowledge to know what is good among themselves. In verses 5 to 9, Job is charged with contempt. He said, for Job has said, I am righteous, but God has taken away my justice. Elihu says that Job said these things in verses 5 and 6. Some of the words are recognizable as Job's words. He did say, God has taken away my justice. In Job 27:2, as God lives, who has taken away my justice, and the Almighty who has made my soul bitter. Job believed that he was righteous and he would speak the truth. He thought that God had denied him justice. Job, seeing his suffering, thought that God incorrectly had brought this suffering upon him. It was actually Satan, as we saw earlier in the book. And while God permitted these things, he did not cause these things. But Job believed that God had denied him justice. Verse 6, Job continues, or at least Elihu continues to say what Job said. Should I lie concerning my right? My wound is incurable, though I am without transgression. According to Elihu, Job said, should I lie concerning my right? However, Job did not use these words. Job honestly believed that he was right. He was no liar. Job did say the following in Job 27:4, my lips will not speak wickedness, nor my tongue utter deceit. Elihu also claimed that Job said, my wound is incurable, though I am without transgression. The term for wound is also translated as arrows. For example, in Job 6:4, for the arrows of the Almighty are within me. My spirit drinks in their poison. The terrors of God are arrayed against me. Job did believe that God caused his suffering incorrectly, but he did not know why. He was confident that he had not committed transgression so as to be punished. It was as if the Almighty was an archer who shot him with poisoned arrows. And so he says here, according to Elihu, his arrow, his wound was incurable. Verse 7, of course, Job was suffering greatly. Affliction. Verse 7, what man is like Job, who drinks scorn like water? Elihu says that Job drinks scorn or derision like water. He has a thirst for derision. He has a thirst for scorn, like someone might have a thirst for water. By this, Elihu accuses Job of not being scorned himself, but of scorning God. This was untrue. And certainly Job did not commit blasphemy. He did not speak evil of God. Earlier, Eliphaz had said that Job drinks iniquity like water. For Eliphaz, it was as though Job had a thirst for iniquity. Job 15:16, how much less man who is abominable and filthy, who drinks iniquity like water? Elihu simply replaces iniquity with scorn. Verse 8, Elihu continues, saying, who goes in company with the workers of iniquity and walks with wicked men? What man is like Job? And then he describes him as being contemptible, or one who drinks scorn or derision like water, who speaks disrespectfully of God or irreverently of God. And in verse 8, who associates with the ungodly. He puts himself in the company of workers of iniquity and walks or conducts himself with wicked men as if he was an associate with them. This was untrue. Verse 9, for he has said it profits a man nothing that he should delight in God. Job did not say that delighting in God did not profit a man. The closest thing that Job did say is contained in Job 9:21 and 22. Job did say some things, as we mentioned in the past, that were spoken rashly and sometimes out of ignorance. He was in great pain and suffering. He had lost his children. He had lost his possessions. He had lost his health. Some of the things that were said by his wife and then by his friends, and the various temptations that he faced. One might feel understanding for Job and what he was going through and what he said. And while some of the things that he said were not right, one can understand why he may have said what he said. One can feel for Job. But Job feared God, and he would continue to fear God even if God took him away. He would continue to fear him. Job did not say what Elihu said that he said. But Job did say in Job 9:21, I am blameless. Not that he thought he was perfect, but that he had done nothing wrong to that he should suffer as he did. And even though he was blameless, he suffered anyway. And so Job said in Job 9:22, it is all one thing. Therefore I say he destroys the blameless and the wicked. Bad things happen sometimes to both the blameless and the wicked. And in Job 9:22, perhaps Job was saying that God allowed the blameless to be destroyed too. Again, Job said some things that were not right, but he did not say that it profits a man nothing in that he should delight in God. As Elihu said, he said. In verses 10 to 15, Elihu defends God. Therefore, listen to me, you men of understanding. Far be it from God to do wickedness, and from the Almighty to commit iniquity. Elihu thought that Job's words were words made God out to have done wrong. He calls for men of understanding to listen to him, to Elihu. He says that certainly God had not done wickedness and that the Almighty had not committed iniquity. He defends God as if God needed defending. Verse 11, for he repays man according to his work and makes man to find a reward according to his way. Elihu says that God repays man according to his work. In some sense, this is true. If he's simply repeating what had been said by the friends, that the righteous are rewarded and the wicked are punished without exception, that this is the way it always occurs, then he was wrong. Job has already exposed that error. We've already seen that sometimes the righteous suffer too. But here in the passage, Elihu says that God repays man according to his work, and there are consequences. Job is being repaid, he says, for what he has done and rewarded according to what he deserves. If he's saying that, he's saying something like the friends had already said, that Job is simply getting what he deserves. That's harsh. Verse 12. Surely God will never do wickedly, nor will the Almighty pervert justice. Elihu says that God does not act wickedly. That's true. The Almighty will not pervert justice. That too is true, as we see in verse 10. Verse 13. Who gave him charge over the earth, or who appointed him over the whole world? No one. No one gave God charge over the earth or appointed God over the whole world. God has charge. God has authority by and in and of himself. He is the maker. And the point here is Elihu says God is answerable to no one, including Job. Job already said as much in Job 9:12. If he, God, takes away, who can hinder him? Who can say to him, what are you doing? Verse 14. If he should set his heart on it, if he should gather to himself his spirit and his breath. So Elihu argues that if God should set his heart on the earth, if he should determine to do so, if he should gather to himself to withdraw his spirit and his breath from the whole earth, the whole world, what would happen? Well, he says in verse 15, all flesh would perish together, and man would return to dust. We know from Genesis that God is creator. God created the heaven and the earth. Verse 15, all flesh would perish, all men would perish, all would return to the dust. Verses 16 to 20. We see that Elihu says how God is impartial and omnipotent. He's all powerful. We see his power in verses 16 to 20. In verse 16, he says, if you have understanding, hear this, listen to the sound of my words. It appears as though Elihu now addresses Job directly. He has spoken to the people, men of understanding, and those who had knowledge, possessed knowledge, who were men of renown, who knew. But now he calls for Job to hear what he says and listen to his words. Verse 17. Should one who hates justice govern? Will you condemn him who is most just? Elihu says that God governs over the world. He concluded that Job condemned God as hating justice, which would be contradictory to him who governs injustice. However, Job did not think that God was a hater of justice or what was just. He did not say that. Is it fitting to say to a king, you are worthless, and to nobles, you are wicked? Elihu is asking Job if it is fitting or appropriate to tell a king that he is worthless or nobles that they are wicked. That would be a serious matter. How much less fitting for Job to tell God that he hates justice, that God is a hater of justice. Well, Elihu argues that it would not be fitting. He already said that Job had made God out to be a hater of justice, which was not true. Elihu continues, verse 19, yet he is not partial to princes, nor does he regard the rich more than the poor, for they are all the work of his hands. Elihu says that God is impartial. God is not partial to princes, nor does God show partiality to the rich over the poor. Everyone, rich and poor, is the work of God's hands. Yeah, of course, that's true. Verse 20, in a moment they die, in the middle of the night. The people are shaken and pass away. The mighty are taken away without a hand. The princes and the rich die unexpectedly. He says, in the middle of the night. It reminds me of the foolish man who had so much and would not share, and instead of sharing, he built bigger barns. He was well pleased with himself, and this foolish man later died. His soul was required of him. Here, Elihu says that in a moment they die in the middle of the night. So unexpectedly, people expect to be able to wake up in the morning. But here in a moment, he says they die. And so the princes, the rich alike, people, rich and poor, pass away. The mighty are taken without a hand, and by God, just as the others. Taken away without a hand, that is, that God takes them away. He shows no partiality. Well, that ends the study tonight, and we've went as far as Job 34 and verse 20, and the plan is to continue with the chapter later. We appreciate you being here tonight and encourage you to continue to study God's Word. We hope this has been helpful in better understanding this chapter of the book of Job. Thank you for being here tonight.